right, I'll call the meeting back to order and moving into council commissioner discussion. Bill?
Good morning. I will address the highway department issue and somewhat the ARP funding. We've got some estimates back from Elevitus, and these are reminded by
Bill, you got to be at the mic. Going to take a long time for us to get used to this, I'm sure.
Okay, I want to start out by saying this is the worst case scenario. Given the way the market is, construction cost, they wanted to make sure they come in with something that was going to be hopefully under the bids. There's a lot going on here. I'll start out by saying we are not actually settled in on how we're going to proceed as far as contractors. We had originally decided to do the design, bid, and build, and now we've kind of backtracked on that. The problem with the design, bid, and build, you hire a general contractor, and he pretty much makes the decisions on who does the work. Who these subcontractors are going to be awarded different jobs. So we wanted to make sure we could involve local contractors. Two reasons. There might be situations where they are not quite the lowest bidder. Maybe they're very close. General contractor, he's going to go with the lowest bidder. And it may be some outfit that we don't know anything about from out of state, who knows. We would like to have the ability to have some say in that process. So we can hire local contractors that we know do good work, we're familiar with them and so forth. That's part of the reason we've shied away from that design, bid, and build. Then we have considered the CM as agent, and that's construction manager. And with the construction manager, we would have more say in the bidding process. Who would get the bids? We could vary off of the bid somewhat, not a lot, but we'd have more say in that process. And that would be doing the total project at once. We are now thinking about piecemealing this project out, one project at a time, without a CMA and without a general contractor. In other words, what we're thinking about is maybe doing the shop project first. One reason we're looking at that is well, there's more than one reason. One reason we don't think Henderson will be out of that facility until February. So we're thinking about starting with the shop or with the existing building renovation first, which is $944,904, as you can see on the top of your list. We're now thinking about doing the shop first as a separate project because we can get in there and do that before February. And that project would be $1,786,053. We're hoping, we're seeing the stock market starting to pull back. We've gotten word that Nucor Building are seeing some cancellations of buildings that they have thought they had sold. I think there's going to be a pullback in some of these costs. And so we want to kind of send out feelers on this. This is kind of a test the waters, with one part of the project, not be committed to the entire project all at once. Test the waters, see what this bid comes in at. And I want to tell you that I personally, and I think the other commissioners are also ready to reject any and all bids that come in on this project, because it's already higher than we anticipated, and we would be ready to reject any and all bids. We've been in contact with the mayor of Auburn, and they are willing to lease our present facility on Ensley Avenue back to us if needed. They say they will work with us to do that if we need more time. And there's a possibility we will need more time anyway. We're getting quite a ways into this time-wise. We've got the design pretty much wrapped up, as you can see with the estimates. Just a few loose ends to wrap up. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at with that as far as construction phase itself. I'll go down through this list with the rest of these costs. As you can see, the truck parking garage is 100 by 100, 210 building is $2,949,900. $949,984. Heated storage building, unheated, non-heated, $597,764. We are looking at real possibility of putting that off, not including that in the original plan, or it'd be the very last that we would do if we do it one at a time. So that wouldn't be up front. The fuel island was, of course, is going to have to be done fairly soon in the project in order to be operational. Salt storage building, same deal. And you can see the cost there. Communication tower and pad. We considered moving the old tower because it had been refurbished and repainted from the existing highway department, but we're coming to find out that's probably not economically the best way to go with that. We need maybe a little taller tower at a new location, and it's just not that much savings to move the old tower. Site development, $628,546. We think that's pretty high. Additionals, install precast concrete bunkers, and those would go in the salt storage building, just keep the salt contained and doesn't get out on the other parts of the building. Then alternate number 2 is an in-slab radiant heating system, and that would be in the shop only. And as you see, we would like to do the floor heat, but we're just not settled in on whether we do that or not. $310,000 extra dollars. There are some exclusions, and they're not on your back page. I didn't get those. I didn't get flipped over and printed. One of the exclusions, of course, is the professional fees. And we know that up front that we are paying that. Furnishings and equipment, which would be part of the soft cost. We've got a lot of things that we're going to reuse. We don't anticipate a lot of expense. We'll move most of our office equipment and desk and so forth from present location. Hazardous material removal and abatement. We've not found any hazardous material. They are doing soil borings out there for the construction, the soil, to test soil, see what we need to do as far as construction, maintain these buildings and keep them on grade. Premium costs extend shift and overtime work. Can't imagine we'd even accept a bid contract that included that. It's going to be a solid bid. If they need overtime to get it done, that's to me, that's on them. I would not include that. Liability companies, connection service and charge. Utilities, of course, is another thing. We have not really much involved with that. It has its own well. It has sewers already there. The only thing we may get involved with having extended out there is the natural gas. It's got propane right now. We'd like to get that natural gas extended. Hopefully NIPSCO will accommodate us in that, because it'll be a pretty high usage. And we need the natural gas. It's less expensive. Construction contingencies is another, building permits, and then, of course, builder's risk insurance is not included in the estimate. A couple things. There is a kind of a debate, I guess, some disagreement as to how we fund this additional. We had talked about 4.1 million of ARP funds to do this project on top of what we have accumulated. And if we stick with the 1.4 or 4.1 million of ARP funds, we would need to fund an additional $3.725816 million in order to complete this project. It's $3,725,816. Personally, I would like to keep this thing clean, use the ARP funds to do it, and keep it clean, have it done and completed. We can, we can finance part of this, would have cost interest, or we can clean it up with the ARP fund. My inclination is to let's clean it up and have it done, one and done and over with. But I know that's not going to leave much ARP funds available for other projects, but I don't know. That's council's decision. That's up to you guys, and that's kind of what I've got on that subject. There is some concerns about drainage in the county. We've got one drain that we have hired outside engineering firm to engineer. We have a public meeting on that, I think, Thursday. And so we'll see where that stands. One of the problems, and we are making some progress. We've just let out the Ghost Cup drain to bid. And one of the problems, though, speaking of the Gross Cup drain, is that we sent out 8 invitations to bid. We got 2 back. So the bottleneck is becoming contractors to do these jobs as much as getting these projects worked through the process with the surveyor's office. We got another project that's coming up, and that's the Sherman drain. I want to mention that, and that's the drain that comes up. It terminates on County Road 23 in the Big Dip, and we've had water on that road, and we've got school buses and a lot of traffic going up and down that road to Country Middle School. So that drain is a priority. We've got some cost estimates on that, and ready to put that to public hearing and get going on that. So we are making some progress. But the other drain that we hired to have done is the out here. Wow. Wow. No. Go out here. Tumor. Anyway, the Denison drain. And so we're going to pay that with ARP funds, the engineering part of that. And we'll see how it goes, see how the bids come in. Okay, we got to get to the public meeting on Thursday before that's even a go-ahead, but I think it will be with the design that's been presented. But anyway, I guess that's where I'm at. I'd like to clean this up. It could be extended out some, I don't know how much, but as far as the cost, if we do it piecemeal one at a time. Take any questions?
Let's back up to the.
I have not anticipated where those will come from. I don't know whether we bond it, whether we take out a loan to do that. Mike has some ideas on that. Right. hmm And that was, as I read here, 575,500.
And then you have lighted funds set aside.
We had lighted funds, 1,520,783.
So,
And we had we had a CD, 177,000.
is-
I don't have a total of those three on my,
all right, because the other fund, I mean, the funding coming from general sources, for lack of a better term, is
Yeah.
going to have to come from the highway funds. That's, if you bond it, the payment will be coming from the highway funds. If you borrow it, the payment will be coming from the highway funds. So we have to be careful about what we do there, because if we stretch them too tight in any one giving year, that's going to eliminate work being done on actual roads.
right.
So we have to
which
be
is
very
not a good
careful there.
Scenario. And that's why another reason to clean this up with ARP funds and have it done, in my mind. It's just, it's going to be the same out of pocket in the end. One way or the other. It is what it is. We've got caught in this escalated inflation. Like I said earlier, we're willing to string this out in anticipation that these costs will come down, and we're really thinking that's very possible. Another thing is, this is a worst case scenario. They built a lot of extra into this because they didn't want to come in under. And so there's a possibility this might be, I guesstimate, 800,000, maybe $1 million over, if things turn around, and maybe even more than that. But that's just speculation. So we
Okay.
got to work with what we got and hope for the better.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Bill, when you were going through the list on the highway department buildings, you mentioned which ones were, going to need to be done first and soon. And on the parking garage for the trucks, is that something that needs to be done right away, or is that something you can put off for a year or two and park them outside? I'm just asking, or is that something you would do immediately? That's the biggest portion, $3 million.
Yeah, the biggest problem with that, and through the summer, that'd be no problem. It's through the winter, that's a problem. That's heated building. And those trucks come in, they are loaded up with salt, sludge, and everything else. We need those to thaw out and clear off overnight, or whatever time they're in that shop. So the wintertime would be a real challenge to do that. Otherwise, it would be fine. And in addition to that, of course, we got several $7 million worth of equipment sitting outside, which, yeah, for a year, that's not a game changer. But the wintertime, it would be tough to do that and have those trucks. They go in, they have to check that truck out, make sure if there's anything that needs fixed or replaced. You can't see it through the slush and the slime and everything else that's backed up underneath them. And functional wise, they need to have that cleared off overnight.
Well, how did you get 900,000 on renovation on their buildings out there?
That's another one I had a big question on. And it involves really, the renovation isn't that extensive. We're going to put in a training break room combination, 2 showers. We had to do a little fixing in the existing offices, mostly just some carpet. There was one area in the waiting area. We wanted to take a wall out and extend that so there's a more than just a cubby hole for people to walk in and have service or whatever business they need to conduct. So there really wasn't a lot. There's a lot more involved in that. And what they're telling me, one thing is the generator would be included in that. All the electronics for the generator and to service the other buildings from that building would be included in that price. Trying to think what else there was. Door removal, it was, yeah, I don't know. It seemed high to me. I figured half million tops, but I'm not in that much of the,
That seems extremely high for
Yeah.
renovating a barn.
we thought so too.
How many buildings are out there?
We're there now,
Yeah,
just the one.
just the one.
Everything's in that one building. It's, yeah, you're right. Yeah, there is a lean-to, an open front lean-to on the back. It has a contained,
But there's something you can't park your trucks underneath, so we can get by for a year or two, so we get this down. The
not
lean-to's not,
heated is a problem with that lean. Well, the present facility is heated. The main facility is heated, but, and that could be utilized to some degree, I suppose.
when this project started, and it reminds me of the same as the community correction out there. We were told by Ben and the commissioners then that would be the in-house in the highway department. Now this seems like this has got kind of expensive on that whatever they did, they could handle the cost in the highway department. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a $7 million project, which is the same way we started out over here to the community correction. First price they give us is $1 million. When we end up borrowing, we're bonded $8.4 million. I say this is kind of on the high side, and there's other projects in that ARC fund that we need to work on too. I'm not really in favor of that, and as someone who's built some buildings and stuff, when you go 80 feet compared to 60 feet on a building, you add a lot of cost to it because your rafters and everything is more expensive. I'd like to see more details why these buildings, like your salt building, is 80 by 80 instead of a 60 by 100, And just out of curiosity, that seems like it's adding a lot of cost to it.
Well, 80 by 80, 60 by, when you go 60 by 100, you increase costs. The closer a building is to square, the cheaper it is, because you pick up square footage for footage of linear on each side.
Yeah, and that's
So-
off balance with some of your rafters and stuff.
It's what?
That's off balance by, rafters and cost and everything. I don't see that with what we've worked with in the past. I know I haven't done any construction for several years, but when we put up that 60, when we went to 40 to 64 feet on our buildings, that almost doubled the cost because we went wider because of the cost of the rafters and the support beams. And that's
This is
some of the size of these buildings I don't understand. Plus, I can't understand 100 by 210, you get $2.9 million in it.
We didn't understand that either.
I mean, there's a lot of cost, a lot of excess cost in what I've seen over the past few years. I realize things have gone up since we've done work, but that seems like it's getting awfully expensive there.
It hasn't gone up, it's exploded, Bill. It's
Well, I
exploded.
understand.
And as far as that salt building, that's actually a soft side. It'll have a steel galvanized frame with soft side set
That's
in the
canvas.
abutments, and then it'll have the concrete
Yeah, okay.
barriers to contain the salt. And it's all high. And that's why we're not going to be in a rush to do this if we can lease back for another year or so at Ensley Avenue. Because we're pretty sure these numbers are going to come down. And that's another reason we're anticipating doing it one parcel, one piece at a time. In other words, we put out that shop for bid. A contractor bids it. He becomes the general on that particular project. We don't have an overall general over the whole project that we would be paying, or a CMA that would be paying. And so we're looking to save some money with that process, and plus string this out, see what that looks like to begin with. Like I said, we're ready to reject any and all bids. we're ready to do that. If it's going to come in, I'm not even sure I would accept a bid that isn't $1 million under this. I'll be honest with you. I'm
So,
not ready to- you know, if we can hold off on this, I think we'll save money.
so you're gonna decide which is priority 1, 2, and 3 and set out bid and work that way
Yeah, but just one at a time,
all
yeah,
the time, okay?
one at a time. We had originally thought we'd do the renovation, but Henderson isn't going to be out there till February. So he'd have to be out, in other words, before we could do the renovation on the existing building. So now we've thought, well, we'll go to the shop. That's the next building that would be critical to have. And it attaches on to the south end of the Henderson building, by the way. It'll just extend on south.
Oh, you guys,
And that's an area we can get in, do the groundwork and get the foundation in and maybe get that up sooner than later, maybe this year yet. I think that'd
Bill,
be
if
the
you're
goal
done,
probably.
Dave's got something he wants to say here.
well, okay.
Yeah, hi, Bill, question. I'm looking at a number I've never seen before, and maybe you can help me out, because we're talking about a total cost here of about 7.9 million, but this says the total project cost estimate is 11.2 million. I've never heard that 11.2 million before.
That would include the purchase of the Henderson property,
But,
one thing. Where'd you
I-
get the 11.2 at?
but I think, you know, when we're talking about this, we should be looking at 11.2 as the total price rather than 7.9, because this is really one awful expensive project. I'm really concerned on this, because that's a big number for the total of 11.2 for everything. You know, I was thinking, the total with everything would be on the high side about 8 million. We're a couple million over that.
Where are you picking up the 11.2?
On this handout that Mike just gave us, it says Highway Department Building Project Cost. It says project cost estimate 11.2 million.
Oh, I got it. You want to?
So I pulled all the numbers together and did that about 3 o'clock this morning. So I apologize for any typos. But that is I'm sure, somewhat on the high side. There are some estimates on soft cost and construction contingencies and some things that go into that. So it could be off by $500,000, but if you're going to look at the project cost, you've got to consider all the stuff that we paid for already, the wetland and floodplain stuff and the design work, and that's got all the professional fees. Everything is included in that. So, I think that's how we have to look at that. It's not just 7.9 million in construction costs. We've got other costs involved too. Secondly, in talking about financing too, there is another option that the commissioners have talked briefly about, but I think makes probably more sense than anything because it solves basically all the problems, and that's a build, operate, transfer. And I did this at 4:30 this morning. And these are real numbers based on that 7.9 million in construction cost, property already being paid for and so forth. So a build, operate, transfer, for those who may not be familiar with that, is that a developer builds a building to our specs on their nickel. And it's basically a build to suit lease situation. So the building's built to our specs. We do the whole project at once. May or may not have to negotiate a little extension with the city. I don't know. But we don't have everything strung out where the highway department is not operating efficiently for a couple of years while we're piecemealing. And I suspect that one complete project is going to be less expensive than 3 or 4 small projects. It's just a thought. But anyway, if we do a build, operate, transfer on this, it cash flows out at about $620,000 annually. So if we take the $2,307,500 that we already have set aside for this project, and we would allocate $1,413,000 of ARPA funds, that's a total of $3,720,500, which would cash flow a build, operate, transfer for 6 years. Then we take that 6 years and work together with the council to come up with a plan to set aside, save, if you will, allocate funds for capital improvement that would, we've got 6 years to set that money aside, which would let us exercise one of the buyout options, and there would be annual buyout options. We could buy it out at maybe year 6, more likely year 8, 9, 10. In the meantime, we haven't drained the ARPA funds, so we've got the other projects going. We've got the complete highway department project built and in operation, and we haven't added anything to the tax burden. We're not borrowing any money. We're not financing it. I mean, there are obviously some additional cost in the lease program, but we're not borrowing any money and increasing the tax. So that's just another option.
Mike, that would be an option similar to the way schools are built?
Well, yeah, that's becoming more and more prevalent in public buildings in general. It hasn't been an option for all that long, but it's very popular. And the other, one of the other vehicles used to finance all of these projects that need to be done on a continual basis is revolving capital improvement bond in small amounts. Has very minimal tax impact, but as those rotate through, you have the funds available to do your projects without dipping in to cash reserves and so forth. And that's a discussion for another day. We're not even in that realm right now. But I think of considering anyway a build, operate, transfer kind of everybody wins. I think kind of best of both worlds.
Do you have any idea what the buyout would cost? I mean, they're not going to do this for nothing.
Well, if we buy the buyout, the range in the buyout from between year 6 and 10 would be somewhere between 6.7 million and 5. Yeah. So.
Could you say those numbers again? Could you say those numbers again about the buyout?
The range, but whether between exercising the buyout in year 6 or year 10, the buyout would be range from 6.7 million down to 5.5 million. So obviously there's a cost because we're working with somebody else's nickel, but but it's less cost than it would be for us to borrow the money, I think, and lets us put the whole project together. So I think it's certainly more efficient use of our funds, and we're still only dipping into the ARPA funds by just north of 1.4 million. Bob?
I was just going to say that also the build, operate, transfer would keep us from bonding that much money instead of borrowing it in a bond, and which sometimes causes a tax increase. So
Yeah, it has no effect on our bond capacity.
I just want to make one comment. I do really like the fact that you're exploring different options for financing. That's really good. And also, Bill, the idea of maybe extending the Auburn location for a while we work this out. I think it's very, very good due diligence for us to sort through all this stuff. It's a big decision, a lot of money before we go ahead and jump in and make a commitment to anything, to be able to extend that and be able to have the opportunity to get through this time.
As far as operation, we would not plan on operating out of two different facilities at once. In other words, we would not leave the Inslee location until we're done up there. And if that takes another year, I think, that would work out okay. But yeah, we wouldn't be inefficiently trying to work out of two different locations at the same time.
Yeah, and I think I agree, having the opportunity to talk about all these different options is wise rather than just jumping feet first into something and in and out of control.
Still morning, good morning. The bot is not a bad idea. If we're going, and we actually have someone, I'll call him a benefactor, that would probably give us a great deal. With that said, I'm hesitant to go into debt if we have cash. I think cash is going to be king here shortly. It's not right now. Cash is trash, but that changes. I think that $900,000 is a ridiculous amount to renovate a steel building. I don't think they're even close. I think they're double at least. Another thing, we don't have to renovate that building. We can throw some fresh carpet in it, a new air conditioner, spruce it up. It's got bathrooms in it. We don't need a break room. We need a shop, a salt barn, and warm storage. That's what we need to operate. You add those up, you're probably in the $5 million range or so. I'd like to see us write a check for this thing and pare back what we have to in order to make it fit budget-wise. We don't have to have the whole $10 million project. There needs to be compromise there. But we do have to have a shop, a salt barn, and warm storage. And again, the warm storage is important. Ben is very, very concerned about the condition and safety of these trucks. When they go out on these roads and get beat up, you never know what's wrong with them. Until you bring them in that shop, you let them melt down. Plus, you want to wash them. Every time you use these trucks, you really want to wash them and get that salt off of there. And without that warm storage, it's nearly impossible to do a good safety check on that truck. Plus, guys, these trucks, they're $300,000 now. Some of this equipment's $500,000. You want to take good care of it. And, so, like I said, shop, salt barn, warm storage. Forget the renovation on another building other than maybe a little sprucing up just to make it usable. And I say we roll that way. But it's up to you. You guys are the money end of it. I know there's other projects to do with the ARPA money. Been good discussion with that. But we do have an absolute immediate need for this highway department. I would encourage you, if you've never been in the highway department, walk through the buildings. Tell me you would work in there. Black mold in the ceilings. The place is a train wreck. It was never meant to be a shop. It was meant to be vegetable storage. That's what it was built. And so it served us well. We've gotten by on the cheap for a long time, and now it's time to step it up. So appreciate your time. Oh, any questions? I'm sorry. Please not. I don't have any good answers. No.
Not from the gallery, Mike, please.
I think what Todd just mentioned is a good reason not to string this out for a couple more years if we can avoid it. You know, because the current facility is in pretty deplorable condition.
I just want to add, Todd made a good comment. We have lived on the cheap for a long time with this old facility. And so we've come to the point in the road, we got to do something. We can't operate without a highway department, obviously. And we've been caught in this hyperinflation, but we're trying to figure out a way to get past this inflation and get the cost, cut back some, whatever we can. And so like Todd said, maybe 5 million, we can get by with it. But it's up to you. We'd like to just cash it out and have it done with. That's my opinion. Any questions?
Well, I do think that the council is interested in looking at what our options are, whether it's going up there piecemeal, one building at a time, or whether it's doing the design build, Mike's suggestion. I think we want to look at all the options. For whatever reason, and I've been involved in some major building projects over the years, I am disappointed that these things weren't decided before the property was purchased and before we're committed now, and it's unfortunate. I've never done business this way. It's backwards. But it is what it is. So we move forward. You know, it's just the way it is. So, anything else on the highway department? I guess we go back to the ARPA plan, Bill. Was there anything more? I mean, it's listed here separately. Was there anything more than its connection to the building?
No,
Okay.
not in my mind. No.
All right, then the other thing on here is the 8-hour workday.
I was just going to ask if Attorney Stuckey, did you have something? It looked like you had a comment or something about things that were being discussed.
Because commissioners are supposed to bet the council a proposal, okay? And this is just a discussion, but are these handouts from the commissioners? Or I get the impression you never saw the handouts before.
Not if Mike did them at 3 o'clock this morning, or at least the one.
Well, okay. Well,
I
the
mean, the other
commissioners
one, I
are
assume
supposed
they
to
have.
present ultimately a project here to the council, what you've decided. Okay. Okay, I just wondered I was trying to figure out what was going on.
Well, it is just a discussion. I mean, they're trying to keep us informed. Yes, Mike.
I'm back up
Okay.
on the work week discussion. There's been sort of an ongoing discussion about work weeks within the county. At least from my perspective, from a standpoint of customer service abilities and efficient operation. We've kicked around 40-hour work weeks for the team in general. And yesterday just had a discussion that kind of went in a different direction that Commissioner Sanderson suggested, and I support, which would be that the commissioners would set courthouse hours of operation that would be more conducive or better access for the public, and let the department heads decide how to staff. We thought that before any kind of decision was made, we ought to maybe poll the county team to determine, what what sort of schedule was preferable. My sense is that there are probably some of the staff that would love to work 40 hours a week and have the extra income, and some that are perfectly content with 35 hours a week. So the mix of those, I think, would make scheduling certainly doable for the department heads to do, but I think it's good for them to have that flexibility. So Jack and Dottie are working on a anonymous survey that will go out to everybody that's employed by the county, and some questions about Amy. So I don't have to leave the microphone. Thank you. Your ears are stuck together again. And aside from some questions on what would be your preference for a work week, there are some other questions added there that I think will give us some sense of what's important to our team members. Some little look into job satisfaction, I think, reasons why they're here. The job market everywhere is certainly a challenge. I have conversations pretty much weekly with other commissioners and elected officials, and everybody is just pulling their hair out, as is the business community. And so I think that having some insight into what's important for the DeKalb County employees and what sort of things will help us in recruiting and retention efforts, kind of in concert with what the council is trying to do with wage parity and some of those things, I think is important. So I've just passed around the questions that are going out. And again, once we get that survey back and sort of have an opportunity to crunch the data on that, then we'll have some additional discussion and commissioners' report, and then talk to you. Questions?
All right, thank you, Mike. Now, the only thing I've got to say about this is the fact that a number of years, the council made an offer to the commissioners and to the other department heads that rather than hiring an additional person or an additional employee, that we would consider adding the 5 hours back to their staff, or maybe 1 or 2 staff members. One department has taken us up on that, and that is the surveyor's office. That they went back to 40 hours. That does cost us, and that we have to pay for the extra 5 hours, but it saves us in the fact that we're not adding benefits. That was never, nobody else has come to us and said that, hey, we are short-staffed, we can't get our work done in the time that we have allotted. So it's not gone beyond that. At the current time, the council has put our WIS group in charge of taking a look at what our current salary competition is in the area, so that we can bring our salaries up to the appropriate level, so that we can compete with other governments and for some of the private employers. Now, there are certain government jobs that don't have a corresponding group in the public or in the private sector, and the reverse is also true. Certain private groups are not going to be able to move into the county government.
Right.
But there is absolutely no way that we can afford to add time to people's departments, plus bring salaries up to where they belong. It's an either-or option. And we have already committed to looking at the salary structure first. So that's where we go there. If you need additional time, If the recorder's office is behind in their work and needs additional hours, I'm sure that the council would consider authorizing those additional hours. But we cannot do both. And even if we could, nothing would happen until January. We don't have the money in this year's budget, and we have to go through that whole budget cycle. We don't even know what our income will be for next year. I think that I think the growth quotient is out now from State Board of Accounts, but I don't know that it's official yet. So we are in this year's budget. We can't do both. And if we're gonna even look at it, you need to have this survey done to see where the other departments are. But it can't even be considered until we get to the budget.
Well, obviously,
So.
yeah. And at this point, it's in the discussion stage, but far enough along that with the survey coming out that we thought you all ought to be looped in.
Well, it's just unfortunate that because it's caused some controversy within the employees, between that and the increased cost for the health insurance and everything, it's got everybody upset. And I think what we need to do is we need to do what we can to be positive with our employees. We have a lot of very, very valuable people working for us, and we need to do everything we can to support them.
You're preaching to the choir, Rick. I absolutely support that philosophy. I think we need to be, given how competitive things are and how valuable these people are, team is to us, I think we need to do exactly what you said. We need to.
All right.
Generate some loyalty and some enthusiasm and treat everybody very well.
Anybody else have anything on this subject? All right. Jim, I think you had something you wanted to say earlier. You want to step up to the podium there and let's see what you got.
Jim Miller, as the newest, the ARPA funds is the overall theme. I have three issues I wish to bring to your attention. One, as one of the newest members of the Drainage Board, we and I'm going to speak for the whole board, would like to request $600,000, as Commissioner Watson has made aware. We are really trying to take care of safety issues with roads that are flooding in this county. We have made that a #1 priority, and with the surveyor's health and other issues, we are very adamantly trying to use outside contracting to get the engineering done for these projects and move them forward. As most everybody knows, the backlog, there's some of these drainage dishes that have been on the record for reconstruction since the 1980s. That is certainly not a good reflection on this county, and we're going to work hard to try to change that. The second part is concerning education as part of the ARPA funds. I would suggest, and this is me personally, that some of these funds be used for rural broadband. I can tell you for exact that more than once this last winter, my first grade grandson was at our house and we would lose internet access during the day. He's trying to do his homework. My daughter-in-law is a nurse for Parkview and is now working at home, and she loses internet access during the day to try to do her job. These are very big safety concerns, and if nothing else, we as citizens should be looking at what is needed to improve this county. And if we're education, I was on the DeKalb School Board for 12 years, so obviously I push education. But if we are not interested in educating our younger generation, and broadband is part of that education process, then we are doing our county a disservice. The third issue is I'm totally agree that the highway garage system in this county is very old, and something needed to be done. I totally agree with that assessment. However, I can tell you for a fact, and I don't think I'm wrong, that where our farm is located on County Road 12 east of Old 27, that county road was paved in 1963, 64 when this county received massive funds with the new 69 project, and all the roads were paved. That road has not been repaved in any way, shape, or form. It's had the gravel put on it, but it has not been repaved since 1963, 64 when it was put in. As far as the safety, I mean, I totally agree, but anybody that travels that road really knows that not just that one, but many roads. And I understand, but to put massive money into the highway garage, I look at the state highway, and anybody that goes down to US 6 sees the state highway trucks have set out for years and years and years. And I'm the first to say, yes, we need equipment inside. I try to keep my equipment inside as much as possible. But if the highway, state highway, and the one on US 6 West, I've gone by it a lot of times here in the last week, and their trucks all set outside year round as well. If they're able to do it, maybe we could learn a lesson from them, at least for the time being, until money is available to build the additional storage. So those are 3 items I would like to bring to your attention, and I greatly appreciate your time.
I'm just adding a comment on him. If anybody wants to see how rough a road is, I'll put you in my ton pickup and go down County Road 12 and then come back on County Road 4. It doesn't get any better. That road is deteriorating. And like he said, I use that personally, but there's other roads like that. But you can't hardly drive 30 miles an hour in a heavy pickup. Ain't I right,
Pretty
Jim?
heavily.
Yeah, I know it.
And we're not going there.
Just a quick comment. I would be in favor of ARPA money being used for drainage. Drainage and roads go hand in hand. If you have poor drainage, it washes out our roads, tears up our roads. Our drainage issues need fixed. So I have no problem with that. As far as broadband, I agree with the fact you lose internet. It's horrible. We are absolutely a slave to technology now. With that said, when you move out in the rural areas, you get certain benefits, and you also have certain disadvantages that come with that. If you have 5 acres, you need a big lawnmower. Someone in town doesn't need that. They get off cheaper by having a small. Those are choices you make. Internet, I think, if I had to guess, is going to be mostly wireless in the near future. I don't know if it's going to be 5G or something else. But to go out and say, okay, we're going to throw 3 or 5 million into fiber, I'm not sure that's going to be the solution for rural. So, you choose where you want to live and you get those advantages or disadvantages, and internet eventually needs to go everywhere, don't get me wrong, but I think it'd be better to put out the fires we have now and then expand later if we want to as far as internet goes.
All right, thank you, Todd.
Yeah, one comment on that, too. You said that, we choose where you live. But a lot of these people's been there 5, 10 years, and that's long before the schools have come out here and said, well, we're going to have a in-day school, a home school, where you have to have internet.
Well,
and that's kind of messed a lot of kids up, like he was making the comment.
I would agree with that, and I would go back to the school and say, school, if you're forcing this issue, you provide the service. Because the school, we paid for that school. We paid for those buses. If they choose to shut down and stay home, I think they're on the hook for those costs.
Well, some of them didn't have choices, too.
I'm sorry?
Like closing the school down.
I don't want to extend this discussion here because Don is, our attorney is correct in that we don't have anything in this that until that ARPA budget is brought to us.
Yeah, I just one point. But I'm in
Jim,
favor-
I will allow you to make one comment and then I'm going to cut this off.
I'm in favor of ARPA money, though, for great.
Okay.
Jim Miller again. I take a big offense to providing that I'm a fourth-generation farmer. My great-grandparents came here in 1872. Yes, it is absolutely my choice to live in rural DeKalb County. It is my choice to be a farmer. But on the same token, there has been a great push on the federal and the state level to increase broadband so that everybody is treated equal. In my mind, this goes back to the 1930s and 40s when electricity came to the city first. And I'm sure that we heard the same type of talk back then, that if you live in Auburn, Indiana, and you have electricity, we don't care about rural America. We don't care about rural DeKalb County. Obviously, electricity to the last mile was a necessity back then, and it is now the same as, in my mind, broadband is a necessity of life that we must accept. And everybody to the last mile in DeKalb County deserves the same treatment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim. All right,
I have
Number-
a question.
go ahead.
So how are you wanting the ARP plan brought
I'm
to
getting
you?
there.
Perfect.
I'm ahead of you there.
I know.
Or you're ahead of me. All right, first of all, what the council can do, what the council is responsible for, when it comes to broadband and what's going on in many of the other counties, they are doing incentives to have companies come in and do broadband. REMC in Noble County, REMC in Steuben County is actually coming down into portions of DeKalb County and going to serve them. The counties have also brought tax abatement in for broadband, where equipment that is taxable, we could give tax abatement for that. The council has never been approached about doing that, but I'm not so sure that anybody has gone out to the different companies in the area to give tax abatement. The one that I do know that's out there right now is Auburn Essential Services is moving out, but they're a non-taxable group anyway. But there are things that we can do, and it's a responsibility of all of us, but primarily of the commissioners, to bring those companies in and see what we can do to increase their movement out. There are some counties that are actually putting up towers throughout their county and then leasing the tower space for Wi-Fi rather than string wire. But that's another option. But it's the county that's put up the tower and then leased the space on that tower. So those are things we can do for broadband directly. As far as the ARPA funds are concerned, there really needs to be no discussion here at the council level until we see a budget for the entire remaining ARPA funds. That's our responsibility, is to authorize the budget for the ARPA money. And I don't want to see that brought to us, as has happened so far, in piecemeal. Bring the whole thing back to us, and this is the budget. And then we can debate that budget as to whether money goes into broadband or goes into the highway or goes into anything else. But that'll open up that discussion for us. But the commissioners need to bring us that full budget for the remaining ARPA funds.
Do you want the full plan prior to me advertising for an additional to get it into the
Yes,
accounts?
until we approve the budget, there's no spending, period. And that has to come back to us as one package, as all the funds. Okay?
So are they required to do that?
We have to appropriate the money. No, but that's our choice.
That's your,
That's
no,
our,
they can bring you an appropriation, you can deny it.
and I still say it has to, I don't know that it ever says they could bring it back in piecemeal or they have to bring it back in total.
They can request an appropriation from ARP funds at any time. You can deny it if it doesn't come in the form you want.
Okay. Well, my choice would be that it would be denied if it's not the whole package, so that we know where we're going with it. that we deny it. Go ahead, Donna.
So just so we understand, if we pull this all together with the commissioners in July, it will be just the plan. It's not going to be advertised as an additional to deny. It's the plan that they're requesting for you guys to decide whether yay or nay, so that I then know what's a go and what's not a go, so that I can get it into the correct accounts. Everybody understand that?
And I think that it's best for us all, because otherwise we're going to be debating this thing every meeting. And I don't think that that's appropriate. And things that are important today, 60 days from now may not be important. We need to know where we're going. So get this plan out there. Bill?
I think, Rick, what you said was important, though, of what things are important today may not be important in 60 days. I think that's a good reason then not to bring the whole thing all at once, because like you said, what may be important today, in 60 days
And
from
we
now,
can-
maybe
and
there's
we
some,
can
just a
change
second.
it.
And so in 60 days from now, or 90 days from now, there could be a whole different way that the state's proposing to do broadband or to do any of those other tasks. And so I think it's, can we just lay out, I'm for the piecemeal, like bring it as needed. So, because I think there are a lot of things that could come up in the future that we may want to look at differently than we are today, so.
Just like any other budgeting process, though, if we budget it in July for this and things change, we can change that budget. They can bring a request to change that budget. But I want to know where that money's going. It's like, it's in my own personal bank account. I don't like to dribble things out all the time. I want to know where am I at now and where am I going to be in a year?
I think we all have our personal opinions about that. So,
The only thing I can add to that, Amy, I understand what you're saying, is if you do it piecemeal like that, it is going to end up costing the county a lot more money, because I have to pay individually every time we want to request that appropriation. So if we get the big picture of the idea that people are agreeing with, I have a one-time additional advertising expense. Then if things change, transfers can be made, and those are not advertised and don't cost money.
When you say that's going to cost the county a lot more money, like how much money are you, for advertising? Is that what you're saying, the advertising?
The advertising costs.
Okay.
So that's why, like,
And
at budget time.
is that like $100, $1,000? I just don't know.
I'd have to look it up. It depends it all depends on the size. It depends if that's the only additional, or if I've got 6 other additionals. Depends how big our ad is, so it all ranges differently. But at the end of the day, it ends up being more in advertising costs because it's each time.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know. Good to keep in mind. Thank you.
Susan, is there an additional cost of personnel, or personnel more active, you're pulling more time by doing these, by breaking it down or not, as opposed to one? Is there a cost, would there be a cost
In my personnel,
by doing this that way, where we do small chunks, break it down, or versus one large one?
no. I mean, it's just Carla does the prep for the additionals and transfers that you adopt. So, I mean, she does them each meeting, so it wouldn't be any different that way.
Okay, thanks.
So you're just talking about the advertising?
Yeah, do you guys remember, I'm trying to think how long ago. I know when I first came, and I've been here 9.5 years, no, 10 years now. Whatever. We used to have tons of additionals come to you guys. So then, after a few years, Jan and I were able to get at budget time where we are able to budget all of the funds, have a plan, so that that's done at one time in August, September-ish. And then we don't have as many additionals now unless they're like unknown things or a fiscal grant or things like that. So the cost of advertising has went down. I can't tell you a dollar amount, but it has went down because we don't have to advertise that all the time. And we have it where we will even have, like, I know one of the grants for probation in August, we will budget, like, say, $60,000 in other service fees until they get the approval to know what they can and can't spend. And then Ryan just has to do transfers, and we don't have to double pay to advertise that he now needs money in this account, this account, because the state doesn't approve until later.
Does does it goes in its own account?
It's its own fund,
And it
and
goes
in
in its own
order
account.
for them to spend on anything, it has to be its own account. We have done, I think, 3 additionals into the ARP accounts already for a few projects that they've already approved at
So
the
that-
end of last year.
So in other words, all they have to do is say, okay, I'm gonna spend 2 million on the highway, 2 million on the broadband, 2 million for roads, 2 million, and 4 million for the jail. And then it's all in one thing, but we can transfer it out of that, right?
Well, there are some complicating factors to that, though, Bill, because we've got to play Tetris with all of these different allocations, because since our ARPA award is under $10 million, we have a lot more freedom as to how we spend it. However, that freedom or that leeway to spend that money lets us spend it on county operation expense. So, for instance, if we are going to put, hypothetically, $2 million into the highway building, we can't just write a check to the contractor for $2 million out of the ARPA account. We have to spend the ARPA money on $2 million worth of county operations and take the money that's freed up then from the budget by putting $2 million in the operations and pay that contract. So it's a little complicated, not quite as cut and dried, and it's a lot better than it was when we had to follow all the final ruling by the Treasury Department. But there's still some maneuvering, and I suspect, particularly Susan would appreciate if she had one big.
Yes, but there's
Yes.
still stipulations with it.
We can treat it as revenue loss because it's under $10 million. So there's no ordinance necessary for that. But the stipulation in that is, as being lost revenue means that you can spend it on county operation, or you can meet the COVID-related requirement. That came from Baker
It's also
Tilly.
why they had to set aside $400,000 for a State Board of Accounts audit.
That's all, yeah.
It was 800.
800,000. All right, anybody else? Mr. Walker?
Hi, Jacob Walker with Walker Farms, and just some comments on the overall discussion here. As running a business myself, I got to appreciate Mr. Ring's comments on looking at this thing holistically, whether it's the ARPA funds or anything else. And I'm going to pick on the highway department a little bit. That first off, I think they have great arguments made for every piece of what was on that budget for that project. And I realize you aren't making that decision today and it was for discussion, but to come in and say, hey, we got $11 million project here, but we think we might be able to cut 5 off of that. This is the lack of planning that I can't do in my business. If I have those ARPA funds sitting there, if that was my business, I would want to know holistically, what am I looking at? Something changes down the road, I've got that choice to make then. But I would appreciate planning that goes into some of this. And like I said, in our business, we can't ask for 11 and say we think we can get that down to 7 or 8. And I would appreciate the county operating some.
Thank you. All right, gonna end the council discussion and move on to the salary and wage ordinance 2022-OCC-3. And you're gonna have to give me just a second here. You got the paper copy? All right. Ordinance number 2022-OCC-3, an ordinance amending the DeKalb County 2022 salary and hourly wage ordinance, DeKalb County Council. The DeKalb County Council hereby establishes the following salary and hourly wage ordinance to become effective for pay period 12/19/2021 to January 1, 2022, paid on January 14th, 2022, through pay period 12/4/2022 to 12/17/2022, paid on December 30th, 2022. It is further ordained that all salaries and wages shall be paid bi-weekly, 26 pays. It is further ordained that any employee hired after the date of this ordinance and will have one pay period withheld for audit purposes. It is further ordained that the compensation of employees and elected officials may include, but not limited to, if provided and meets eligibility, a stipend, health insurance, health savings account, HSA, professional certifications, educational advancements, and per diems, regardless of the source of funds for which the money is paid. Now therefore be it ordained by the DeKalb County Council that the salary and hourly wage ordinance for the 2022 budget is hereby amended to include the reclassification listed and/or that the employee will be paid within the range represented from the federal minimum wage to the maximum of the dollar amount set forth on this ordinance unless amended. Information systems from the general fund, part-time, Pat A, $26 per hour. I move we approve ordinance 2022-OCC on first reading.
It ends up that way just because the way our pay periods fall and when they get paid out.
Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Been moved by Councilman Kraft. For a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Yard. Discussion?
Can you remind us a little bit on this? This isn't ringing a bell with either Amy or I.
This is, isn't this Paul Brewer?
Yes. Paul came back.
The IT man in the jail left for a different position. Paul Brewer, who is retired from that position, has come back on a part-time basis until a new hire comes in. All right, I have a motion, I have a second. Any other discussion?
How was that, was the 26th then just falls in line with the Pat A, correct? Is that the, I didn't look, is that the high or low for that?
The 26 actually just, it falls in line with what he was making when he was here. When he worked part-time for us, Paul was full-time, then he went part-time. When he was working part-time, that is what he was making, and so he brought him back at that same wage for part-time.
So it doesn't fall within the range that we have currently for Pat A?
I don't know, Dottie, you know offhand? Okay.
Because he was occupations,
Mm-hmm.
he was IT.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've reclassified. So does this reclassify then all part-time IT people coming in Or is it just his specific role? I guess I'm confused.
This is just for the sheriff's department, right?
Well, it's for IT. It happens to be that position that works at the sheriff's department. The IT part-time line could go up to $26 an hour, but his other part-time people, he does not pay them that amount. This is specific to Paul.
I guess I'm still confused then, is how do we work that into an ordinance? I mean, wouldn't that then make it that all future part-time IT employees coming in would have to fall within that range, but he's already going to make more than the range? Is that right?
They can pay up to that $26 an hour, and then that is where you leave it up to and trust your department heads and elected officials that they're going to pay per hour correctly. He's not paying his other part-time people that much money. He's requesting this because the council had approved to pay Paul the $26 per hour when he was here prior for part-time pay.
This was part of the discussion when we did the budget last time, that, we had a pretty much across the board pay for part-time people. I think it was $15 or whatever. And we felt that it was inappropriate or unfair to bring some of these part-time people back, or these part-time people were doing exactly the same job as another full-time person within that department. We thought that it would be more fair if they were doing the same job to be able to pay them up to that amount of money. So yes, it can be different in all the departments. I can think of one, I think we discussed this about somebody that I believe was in the recorder's office that was making a $1 amount, and then when she was brought back in for part-time, was greatly reduced, even though she was going to be doing the same job day to day as she was doing when she retired. So we thought that was a way we could fix this.
So just so I'm clear again, this salary falls just outside of the normal high limit of Pat A, right?
It falls outside of what council approved as the level for Pat A.
What was that upper limit? Could you give me that?
2508, I believe.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any other discussion? Comment from the public? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. That motion passes. I suspect that we lost a councilman, at least two, in the last 15 minutes to get up and go outside the room. Why don't we take 5 minutes before we come back and finish the rest of this? Well, the chairman needs to needs to get out.
Okay, I'm not stopping the recording, so it will stay live because it takes a bit.
Remember that it requires a unanimous vote. So if I could have a motion to suspend the rules. Been moved by Councilman Yard. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Kraft. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of suspending the rules and reading ordinance 2022-OCC-3 on second and third readings by title only signify by saying aye. Opposed, same. That motion carries. Ordinance 2022-OCC-3, an ordinance amending the DeKalb County 2022 salary and hourly wage ordinance. DeKalb County Council, can I have a motion to approve this on second and third readings? I'll
make that motion.
Been moved by Councilwoman King. Is there a second?
second it.
Second by Councilman Van Wy. Discussion? Comment from the public? All those in favor of passing this on second and third reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. That motion is carried. All right, next. We have the ordinance approving the establishment of uniform application and review criteria for real and personal property. This is tax phase-in 2022-RCC-3. You have the paper copy for that. You have the paper copy for that one. DeKalb County Council Resolution 2022-RCC-3, a resolution establishing a uniform application and uniform review criteria for real and personal property tax phase-in. Whereas the DeKalb County Council believes it is in the best interest of the DeKalb County to have a uniform application for those requesting real and personal property tax phase-in, and whereas the DeKalb County Council believes it is in the best interest of the county in the administration of both real and personal property tax phase-in, that the review criteria for such phase-in shall be more objective for applicants. It is hereby resolved by the DeKalb County Council that the attached Exhibit A shall be the application for real and/or personal property tax phase-in, and the attached Exhibit B shall be the tax phase-in review criteria for applicants for both real and personal property tax phase-in. It is further resolved that the attached Exhibit A and the attached Exhibit B may be amended from time to time by the DeKalb County Council. It is further resolved that the DeKalb County Council adopts the attached Exhibit A as the application for real and/or personal property tax phase-in, and the attached Exhibit B as the review criteria for real and/or personal property tax phase-in. This resolution shall take effect upon passage on the 14th day of June, 2022. And I have a motion to accept or to pass Resolution 2022-RCC-3.
I'll make that motion.
Then moved by Councilwoman King. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Kraft. Discussion? Comment from the public? Hearing none. All those in favor of passing this RCC-3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye.
Oh,
And it passes 5-2. All right. So moving on from there, we have, counted these up before, we have the CF1 forms for compliance with the current tax abatements. The Tax Abatement Committee has made personal visitations to each one of these companies over the last couple of weeks. And 1, 2, 3. There are 9 compliance forms or companies here. I believe there are 11 actual tax abatements, and we found them all to be within compliance, and they are Auburn Renewables, Country Heritage, Magic Coil Investments, Nucor, Paragon Steel, Reinhardt Finishing, and Steel Dynamics and Technoblock. We found them all to be in compliance, and the Tax Abatement Committee this morning recommended that the council accept these as in compliance. If I could have a motion to accept these. Been moved by Councilman Yard, has been seconded by Councilwoman King, Dembski? Okay, I was looking at her. All right, been moved and seconded that we accept these as being in substantial compliance. Any discussion?
Can we get a copy? Are we allowed to get a copy of those, what that looks like, just as far as what is compliant?
You should have these. Didn't these all go out to the other? That only went to
That
the
is for
committee?
your committee.
Why don't you send this on to the other council people?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I'll trust that the committee made the right decision.
Okay. Do I have a vote on that? No.
Voted down.
Okay. That's right, it was
Was
fine.
not.
Don't try to fool me, Bill. All right, that's that one. All right, that moves
Have a
us.
vote?
No.
We haven't had a vote.
We did it?
No, Yard and Dembski.
Yard and Dembski.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept that these are in compliance at the recommendation of the Tax Abatement Committee?
This is just accepting they're in compliance, not saying you're for it.
No, it says that they are in compliance. They
These have
still
feel like that was directed at me,
have the
Donna.
equipment, it's still functioning.
These have already been approved. Correct. You guys have already approved that they can have the abatement. This is
Right.
just letting us
This
know
is-
that
This is something we have to go through
for
every
page
year.
23, they are in compliant.
Right.
Yes.
All right, with that being said, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion?
I
Comment?
just want to make a comment that there's a lot of pretty cool things happening in our companies and industries in the county. And I know the hot topic is jobs, but we're retaining a lot of jobs. And some of the items that are made in DeKalb County are being shipped literally internationally and being used in the military in the Ukraine right now. And I mean, I wouldn't have known it, I guess, if I wouldn't have made these visits. And I know Dave's first visit, I think he was kind of blown away too at just seeing some of the things that are done, so.
It is. It's a good committee to be a part of. I, for one, don't necessarily like abatements, never have, never will. But after being a part of the committee and visiting, sometimes you have to swallow those kinds of things
Yeah.
and balance out what's going on in the behind the scenes. And it really did change my heart in how I vote.
And we're helping them retain their employees, but they're also, I mean, so many of our companies are great community supporters, and I think that's just important to acknowledge as well.
And with the new documentation that we're doing, I think we can obtain that information that they are supporting the community. And we're also looking at whether or not they're receiving other benefits. And that will weigh on our decision as to whether they get a tax abatement.
I just want to add, they're all living up to their end of the bargain too, and they're doing it under difficult times. They can't find employees, it's difficult. A lot of them have had to drop a shift because they can't find enough employees, supply chain interruptions and everything. And I mean, they've really got their hands full in a lot of ways, but they're doing everything they told us up front that they were going to be doing under really difficult times.
And I think one of the things that was very well demonstrated in almost every one that I went to, and there were a couple that I missed, and that is that one of the difficulties in obtaining employees is the lack of housing. That it brings back to the forefront the fact that the county, as a county, city and county working together, we need to really work on increasing that housing here in DeKalb County so that we can, especially when an employee that's driving in from south of Fort Wayne or north of Angola or somewhere in Ohio, you know, at today's gas prices, they'd much rather live here than have to make that type of a commute. So we need to work on housing.
But
So-
also, I would also ask, I sent out an email last night to the rest of the council from a Purdue professor who is an expert in county finances, who had a lot of information about whether or not abatements really do bring any kind of benefit to the county. So I just would encourage you to read those, and just to encourage your feedback. I'm learning and would like to learn from all of you. And but I thought that this professor had a lot of good comments about some of the things that were mentioned here today. So
Well,
look
and
forward
I
to hearing
will,
from you.
while I've not read the article yet that Amy set out after I went to bed last night, Dr. DeBoer is somebody that we have always paid attention to. He is very knowledgeable, and he works from many different aspects in taxation and property taxes, primarily from the standpoint of, he got into it because he was in the agricultural departments in Purdue, which was pretty good for a guy from New York City, I believe, as a matter of fact. But it put a lot of faith in what he's got to say, but I do know that this is one of, tax abatement is one of those tools that we have that the legislature's given us, and we have to, I believe, utilize those tools. If we want to change it, it's going to have to be changed at the state level. Legislature's going to have to do it. But that is what it is. So anyway, I will look at that article.
Thank you. I
when
appreciate
get
it. I thought he
home.
had a lot of good points,
But,
and I
yeah.
think he argues well against what you said. But it's a good,
You can look at,
we'll agree to disagree.
most of the training that we give through the Indiana Association of Counties on property taxes does come directly from Larry. I mean, that Dr. DeBoer has been a staple in that.
So, just, Rick, just out of curiosity, so if he seems to say that he's against abatement, so why does then the state, if they put so much value into what he's saying, not do the same thing that he's saying?
Probably because of what other states are doing, I would imagine, and what other counties are doing. And,
Regardless of the fact that
we come out fighting with each other. There's inequities in, well, and we're going to go into one here in just a second, with personal property. They would like us to do away with personal property, but we really can't afford to do away with personal property taxation, at least not the way things are right now. They try to compare us to the other states, but they don't often broadcast or highlight the fact that Indiana never taxes 100% of the value of the acquisition value of personal property. They started at 67%, but they never go below, at least at this current time, they never go below 30%. So, we give them a break on the top end and keep them on the hook at the bottom end, is basically,
Right.
I guess, the way to say it.
Right.
But
I think
that's
you-
different than other states do.
I think you pointed out last time, too, that it's only for certain industries. Is that right?
Well, that's the topic I want to bring up
Okay.
here in just a minute,
Okay.
but it is affecting that particular industry.
Okay. So, yeah, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that the state is forcing us to pick winners and losers, which
Yeah,
is
and
disgusting.
it's just like your income tax rules. I use what I've got. Whether I agree with it or not, I use the rules that are there. When it goes away, I'll use the new rules. So, all right. We still need to vote. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. And on approving these tax abatements. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion passed. All right. Last thing, and this is really more direction for Susan, not so much for the council. It's what we discussed, or what I brought up at the last meeting. But we are looking for the actual details that we can find on what the change from moving from Pool 4 to Pool 5 in property tax, in personal property abatements for, it'd be Steel Dynamics and Nucor, I believe, is, what is that dollar amount change going to mean for us? The 5 counties are trying to work together to see what adjustments maybe need to be requested for the next legislative session to make us, to either replace that lost income, or maybe we decide that it's not that much. We haven't really lost that much. Out of the 4 counties, the one county, it really doesn't affect them at all right now, simply because within that rule, it says if there are tax bonds out there still being funded by this TIF district, they cannot move from Pool 4 to Pool 5 until those bonds are paid off. And so that's Whitley County. Whitley County is not being affected.
Doesn't that include their subsidiaries also?
And it also includes their subsidiaries, which in the case of Steel Dynamics would include OmniSource. So. And I don't know how this would affect, I mean, with Nucor, you're actually, if their plant in DeKalb County and St. Joe area qualifies because of the subsidiary rule, does that bring in all the stuff that's up in Waterloo too? So these are all facts that we need to find out. What is the effect going to be of this? So with that, I have nothing else for discussion. Anybody else? No? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Been moved by Councilwoman Prosser.
Wait, I wasn't on. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Been moved by Councilwoman Prosser. It's been seconded by Councilwoman Dembski. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. That motion's carried. Thank you all very much. This has been a much longer meeting than typical. Appreciate you all being here.
You sign all those.
Okay. All right, there's that.